We were today at Copper Lake with the Zig-Rig, and at this spot, it really worked well. The Zig-Rig is always again just excellent when we have cold water. And that already looks good again. First fish here directly, Orangi Ogon. Yeah, and with cold water, we of course also always like to test the Zig-Rig here at Copper Lake, because here you have the possibility simply with floating baits to position exactly the bait where the fish are just staying. And that is also again the big difficulty. And that's why we go here once more, nicely step by step through what you need for fishing at Copper Lake for the Zig-Rig. First of all, as already said, we of course need cold water. That means again, it is cool. It is not ice cold like in winter when the fish are in stiffness, so to say, and are at the ground and hardly move. Of this we are of course not talking. As we can see, we still have 17 degrees, 18 degrees, 19 degrees. So it is still relatively warm, but the water is rather cool. Because the question always comes, yeah, but in real life it is different. We are here not talking of winter cold like you see here. We have almost 19 degrees. The water is rather cool. That means the fish go more upwards because up there it's a bit warmer. When here below it says the water is warm, we are of course not talking in the game that it's boiling hot, 40 degrees in the shadow, and in the water almost no oxygen anymore. And the fish then go in the oxygen-rich upper zones. In the game it is only lightly warmed water, so a bit warmer water. And accordingly the fish in the game are more down below, because there it is cooler. So all these extremes, we throw them out. What we know from real life stays in real life, and we stay there of course with the extremes. So very hot water or very cold water, there it is the same. The fish then stay accordingly there. So just as you maybe also learned it in real life, so it is absolutely right. But in the game we have cool temperatures and lightly warm temperatures of the water. And accordingly, we use then the rigs with different leaders. Or we put ourselves on positions that are either here in the shallow area or here in these deep holes, in the channels, in the deep areas. And there we fish then depending on the temperature of the water. In the live stream, I stood today here at the pier and fished here in the area very shallow at the water lilies, a very classic spot. Maybe I test that again in a moment. That worked quite well. And also here in front, I had stood in this area. So these classic spots that the last days always work quite well. Now, of course, with Zig-Rig fishing, we have three components that work random and that we must test. That makes the Zig-Rig fishing, of course, especially difficult. That means we must find out in which water zone are the fish right now. So, which leader length do we use with the Zig-Rig? Additionally, we must find out which aroma do the fish even want? And as the third component, we must also find out which foam color must we use as carrier mass for the aroma? So what color shall the bait now actually have? So when we are at such a spot, we go simply to the next nice spot and think, yeah, this here is surely perfect for Zig-Rig fishing. Then we use first our marker rod, and in this case I chose here 10 meters distance. I cast of course the 10 meters out, open and close the bail. So we are in the line clip on 10 meters, open and close the bail. That means the line clip releases, the marker float rises upwards. And now I turn a bit and very slowly, zack. And in that moment, I maybe even must open again, turn even less. So in that moment, we have the message 1.5 mm. When I cast a bit more left, a bit more right, a bit more straight. So about 1.5, 1.60 mm I just measured. Let's take 1.60 mm. If I only pull very slightly, we have directly the 1.60 mm. So here at the spot, 1.60 mm depth. Now we must find out where do we position ourselves in this water column of 1.60 mm. Where do we position the leader? I have, as said, one leader on 40 centimeter, the next leader on 60 centimeter, and one leader I have on 1 m height. That means these three levels I cover right now, with one aroma and different colors of foam. So this is how the whole thing looks here now. Size 1 hook, 40 centimeter mono leader. We'll also look at the leader material. X-carb mono, mini leader materials, 27 kilograms in my case. And then here, relatively small foam baits. One could even go smaller. 14 and 15 millimeter for testing are always good. And here is the second setup now with 60 centimeter. Also again monofill line, so floating line with two different colors. Also here again lime and orange as color. And the third version, again orange and yellow in combination on a 1 meter long monofill leader. And all the time here with Hot Devil. Now we need, of course, also again a matching ground bait mix. And because we can't use PVI here, we of course also have two options again. Simply throw in balls at 10 meter, or of course with the bait rocket. And I am choosing here, of course, right now, the bait rocket. Namely this Spomb Bomb, which then bursts open when it hits the water surface, so to speak. And then the entire cone, the entire content now trickles out here. And then we have in the entire area floating as well, or rather as a column, so to say, the ground bait mix standing there completely. And for the ground bait mix, who would have thought? For testing, I of course again take the koi neutral carp ground bait mix. You also saw it already in the last koi carp videos, with mixed feed from the Windenbach as base, with maggot, with corn, nut mix, rice, and vanilla as aroma. That is basically the original carp ground bait mix, slightly transformed, as said, with the mixed feed base, and here with nut mix and rice components extra inside. That works quite well at the moment. However, one must also always consider that this mixed feed as a base does not have such a strong attracting effect. It attracts a wide range of many things. If, however, we at some point specifically want to target something and find that we have at the spot a special kind of fish, then we can try with another base to create once again a stronger ground bait mix with a stronger attraction. So then maybe we simply make as base corn or rye, pea or wheat bran. So these very classic aromas for carp fishing. I'm now at this point also first throwing out the feed, and then let's see how the whole thing reacts here now. Speaking of reacting, we have here directly the next bite. That is already good, and I cast again right away. We have 10. Now we have here 20 times ground bait mix inside. That is already not so bad. So always a lot of feed in here when fishing for koi carp. That were now as said 20 portions. So 200 drying for the beginning. And I think that I right away in the morning hours around 4 a.m. will directly once again throw in another load. Well, there was a bite, and then unfortunately not hooked. That means now I will right away again cast into this feeding area again. And then let's see how the whole thing works. What we could see nicely today in the live stream. If you set the leader to 1.50 min here at this spot, so just under the water surface, you see the foam, you see these floating baits, and you actually see then that the fish arrive and bite and try to bite the bait and to hook. And you see them, how they then actually at the water surface there then spawn. So really, or swim towards it. So really, really, really interestingly done. That was already fun today in the live stream to see how the fish come there and try or then play with this bait and keep biting and nibbling. That is really nice. Yes, now I already have here on the combination twice the Orangi Ogon. That means I will build this combination right away also on a second setup. So lime and orange, and the two, or this combination, I will then right away, as said, transfer here to a second rod as well. And I think I will take out this setup here, and then also adjust the leader length here. What do we have now here? If we say at this spot here, we now have 1.62 m total water depth, and I use now here 60 centimeter leader, then we are basically 1 m under the surface. And if we know that we are 1 m under the water surface, we can transfer this unit 1 m under the water surface to the entire lake area. That means at the temperatures of today, just as it works here right now, 1 m under the water surface should work at various spots. In the live stream, I stood there at the jetty. Also there, the spot was active at 1.15 to 1.20 m under the water surface. That means you surely have a certain range that works. So, you probably don't have to be on the exact centimeter in the area. But if you say from 1 m to 1 point under the water surface, then you can spread it across the whole lake. Then you can also hear at various spots fish again and again. You simply have to make sure that with the leader you come up long enough. And if you don't manage that, well, then you simply go with a float rod from top to bottom. And then simply set your baits with the float rod exactly in the same area. That would then be the other option. You simply stand here with a match rod, and I would say I will do that right away with the third rod. That means I now cast here again the same combination with spice out at 60 centimeter depth, and then we do here as the next combination, or rather the third rod, we bring out once, and instead I then take here for float fishing at Copper Lake my match rods. In float fishing at Copper Lake, we of course also have restrictions. That means again that we may not use various reels and rods. Up there it says restrictions. We may not use carp rods, we may not use match rods with a strength greater than ml, or fixed spool reels that are larger than 6,000 size. So up there we have the restriction written. That means in this case here I am now just using a light match rod, and we then of course set it up on carp hair rig, build it here, relatively light together. That means here you go, directly right into the drill. Then I still need spice baits, because I am the whole time fishing with spice. So the fish doesn't get too huge that maybe goes in here, I have now only used a size 4 hook, and also take small baits here. And now I go here exactly from top to bottom. We just said between 1M and 1.2 M it worked. So I now choose here at this spot 1.1 M, then cast exactly also at the 10M, and land then exactly as we want in this area. I take the line clip off once more, and then it may all stand here. Aye, aye, aye. What do we have here on it? Oh, that is not bad. That may gladly go off like this here. There was also in the live stream the biggest fish with 32K dream thing, 32K mirror carp. Really, really nice. Okay, now we just see what happens here. And as far as I know, it was also caught here at this spot. That was, of course, also really cool. And I'm curious what goes in here. Whether maybe also Orangi Ogon comes in here, nicely on Zig-Rig. No, that is also rather a thing, mirror carp. Or these linear carp. I think mirror carp at the jetty, where I stood in the live stream, there were almost only linear carp. Really, really many linear carp. Also worked perfectly with same baits, so same color and same aroma. But there were then rather the linear carp. Is that also a linear carp? No, it is the mirror carp. 10 kg, yes, we gladly take it. Quickly out again. And look, on the float it also goes on. Well, nothing else remains anyway, because it must go on the float. Because in the area we now know, we have found out already, in the area the fish bite. That is the active zone. That means we can also hear Zach fish on float now here, or we simply stand here with the match rod. Maybe it's even more pleasant right away. Instead that I hear fish with 12 kg on the float, on the light rod. I can of course also hear stand with the telescopic rod, with the big 25 kg telescopic rod, and maybe also still make telescopic rod fishing here. So, and on it goes, very nice, yes. And so goes then the Zig-Rig Fishing. That's how you do it at every spot. What is always difficult is you must of course always test which aroma works. That is the first test. At what depth of the fish? So calmly, always 3 different depths change and try. And of course, which colors work. And they do not even have to be typical or logical colors. That you say, okay, with banana I take yellow foam. It can also simply be a completely different color. That also works again and again very well. By the way, the night also always has influence on the position of the fish. That would mean, theoretically or practically it is so, that we in the evening hours shorten the leaders a bit, and the fish go rather further down. Maybe you simply go again 10-20 centimeter deeper, and then try there to catch the fish in slightly deeper zones. At night, the position then changes once again. And that we must of course also consider in float fishing, but also just the same in Zig-Rig fishing. Well, on the float, it takes a little longer. That means I still have enough time here to pull out the fish and right away cast again. Well, look, the next Dinklesbuehler mirror carp here, all nicely completely on spice, 10 meter distance, that one can still do quite well. Looks pretty good. So pulled in loosely, and then we wait here further on the float. I think there was just a little something on it, but also already stopped again. Here you could of course also again go a bit deeper and just see whether in the slightly deeper zone you catch again better, because it is now already much later. So after 11 p.m. and now is the official night phase. Yes, so much once again about Zig-Rig Fishing. If this whole thing helped you, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Also gladly listen again into the Q&A with RF4. There the entire topic Zig-Rig, several hours long program, and of course we have then also discussed everything several times. So pure into the videos, learn, test, as always. And then we see us in the next video. Until then, tight lines.